Man, these I don't know. Well, I'm gonna have to fix my stream before we do the next one and figure out what the deal is with the settings on this. I don't understand why it keeps cutting out, but it seems falling out for whatever reason. I think we'll just about probably wrap this up here pretty soon. Fairly soon. Sorry about that, guys. It's I'll get this thing fixed on the next stream and find out if it's just a low latency deal or what it is. I'm not running any other program on my computer though. It should be just the stream should be flowing through nice and steady. And maybe just it can only take so long. I like Michael Brockers, but he's a run stepper and he's probably going to cost some money. I like Leonard Williams too. I think he's been a guy that's been mainly in a 3-4 scheme there with the Jets, and I think he would fit pretty good. But I think he'd fit better in a 4-3. No on Eli Apple and no on Janoris Jenkins. Remember, veteran corners, they have a tendency to not do great when we brought in free agent cornerbacks onto the Hawks. And the reason is because they use that kick step technique and the bail technique. It's a really hard transition for cornerbacks who've played more in those stickier coverages where they're just supposed to man up. I'm going to go ahead and franchise Jaron Reed, if I'm going to do anything. I think Jaron Reed's a great player, but he didn't show enough to me this year that I'm going to put him on a $15 million 4-year deal, which is what he's probably wanting. I go, hey, Jaron, you were out for 6 years on a suspension. You got injured when you came back, and the production wasn't fantastic when you did return. So we'll go with the franchise tag. Give us a prove it year on this one. We'll see what you can do, and then we'll pay you if you can get through it on this one. I'd prefer that. But we'll see what they do. It's going to be an interesting choice that they have to make on that. The Seahawks should sign my cat as a mascot. Absolutely. I know it's not a bird, but she's cute and she's fun and she's feisty. That's always good. It's good to hear on the audio, Carl. Sorry about the stream stuff there, guys. The stuff just goes sideways on me all of a sudden. I don't know why. Thoughts on Saints? The Saints are in an interesting situation, man. They've got Drew Brees still there, but you had times where Teddy Bridgewater played great, even better than Brees, it seemed like at times. And then Taysom Hill was the guy that was the difference maker for them offensively, the only able way for them to get any offense at all in that playoff game. So I'm not sure which route they go. They've got a good, solid team, though. They're going to be in it. I mean, they're another team that has done a good job of filling out the full roster. No, I don't think C.J. Anderson would have made a difference in the postseason, Sebastian. I think that the offensive line wasn't going to get holes for whoever was back there blocking with the injuries that you sustained. I think especially the Apati injury, as far as the run blocking goes, the Apati injury really did hurt us in the totality of what that meant on that offensive line at that point. No, I'd give Reed the franchise tag. Defensive tackles don't cost as much on the franchise tag as other positions that might be up over $20 million. So a 1-year, $15 million deal for Jaron Reed with $70 million plus in cap space like we have, perfectly fine with that. No issues there whatsoever. I'm okay with those Seahawks running the play action that they run, Nathaniel. I'd like to see them pass more opportunities for Russell to throw the ball. I really would. Yeah, Jonathan, I just think you don't need necessarily superstars on the defensive line all over the place, but you do need good guys all over that line. You can't have a bunch of just guys like we do now. The Al Woods injury was the thing as far as us being able to stop the run that killed us from being able to run the ball or stop the run and defense in the last few games. That was absolutely a monumental blow to the team as far as stopping the run, because he was really great on holding that interior up and nobody could run up in the middle of us. And you saw teams having a lot easier time getting those yards up the middle than before, which then opened out the outside because then we were trying to collapse to the middle and really protect the middle. So, that one hurt, man. That one definitely hurt. I like Derrick Henry a lot. I wouldn't make a trade for him, but he's a fantastic back. The thing that does help Derrick Henry as well, though, of course, is I think he's got 3 first-round picks on that offensive line, if not more. And then those top 10 picks at that. It's easy if you're, the Cowboys with their first-round picks and having top 15s that they went after, and other teams. Yeah, you can build your offensive line when you're picking in the top 10 and you keep picking offensive linemen every year. You can make a good offensive line that way. That's possible to do it that way. We're not going to be picking in the top 10 anytime soon. So it's really not feasible for us to look at and go, well, we can apply that same situation to us. We could do the same thing. No, have a good one, Nathaniel, man. I appreciate you hanging in here with me. Thanks for jumping in on these streams. Yep. Defense was absolutely inconsistent, and they drove me crazy this year. Drove me absolutely nuts that how they look to go about their business. trotting out the 4 linebackers against 3 wide receiver looks time and time again. I'm actually surprised the Packers didn't attack it as much as I thought they would in this game. Other teams attacked it real well. Other teams figured it out pretty damn quick. They've got to get away from that, man. They've got to get away from that. Yeah, we play a ton of zone, man. It's a problem. And we play a predictable zone. We don't move our cover. You don't get a safety starting out in cover 2 look who suddenly comes down and plays a flat route. That cover 2 looks remains a cover 2 look. So that you're not doing a lot of real complicated things after the snap either to confuse the quarterback. Again, just makes everything easier. The quarterbacks can read us pre-snap and post-snap with a lot of ease, which makes it that much tougher on our players to beat them if there's no, you're not hiding your hand at all. You're just, everything's out in the front. Have a good one, Sebastian. I appreciate you hanging in here with me. Yeah, Al Woods is, I potentially could bring him back, though, if they can bring him back on a very similar good deal, something that's not, a 1 year, $2 million deal as a run stuffer. I'm perfectly fine with him in that respect. Yeah, I trade for an OL. The Funky Monkey, my number one trade right now is you do a Quentin Nelson trade for the Colts. I think the Colts need a quarterback. I think they need draft capital to go get their quarterback, and I think they'd be willing to give up a guard to get that first round capital to do that. Have a good one, Sebastian, man. I appreciate it. Troy's a great player. The problem is, though, that they wouldn't use Troy in the way that you need him used. I don't know that Pete Carroll used Troy Polamalu at USC in the same way the Steelers used him, because the Steelers truly used him all over the place, everywhere. And I'd love to see more of that, but it's not in the Seattle's DNA to utilize their defensive secondary that way. They got their guys with very strict, specific roles, and they hold them into those roles. Shaquille Griffin, you're going to play the right side of the field. You'll play in the bail technique in that cover 3 the majority of the time. You need to keep things in front of you, blah, blah, blah. It's that wash, rinse, repeat. But yeah, Funky Monkey, I make the trade for an offensive lineman. I go find a guy like Quentin Nelson, even if it costs me a first round pick. We need our offensive line to get substantially better. And the guys have not developed that we've hoped would develop. Yeah, tight ends shred us like usual. Part of that is tight ends within the scheme are going to shred you. You play a cover, in playing cover 3, where you have your corners drop to the bail technique in their deep zone, and then you'll usually have your free safety drop into the center into the deep zone. What that leaves then is the seam routes. Everything up the seam is going to be open, and that's just going to be built. You're going to get attacked that way, just in the way you're built from a schematic standpoint. It's going to be tough to stop. It's not impossible to stop, but teams are always going to kind of attack in that. They're going to attack those seams because of it. That's 6. I think the Seahawks could have gotten to the Super Bowl if they're even half as healthy as they were. If you come into this game with a healthy Mike Iupati and, I'm trying to think of somebody else out there that, or a truly healthy Quandre Diggs, because I think Diggs was playing through a high ankle sprain. If you've got those guys in healthy shape, a couple extra things, I think it makes a huge difference. We lost this game by 5 points. And I fully feel like that Niner game next week would be close because it's a conference, it's a divisional game, and those teams tend to play each other close all the time anyway. I still think I agree, Carl. I think John Schneider should be the general manager of the year for the deals that he made. He made some awesome moves, and if he didn't make these moves, we don't get to the playoffs. I mean, if that Diggs move he made at the deadline and the way he was able to get him for what he got him for, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing deals. And he's done a fantastic job. But Carroll's kind of held Schneider out to dry a little bit here in some of the stuff he's done schematically for the talent that he's given him on the football field. Not completely, but just a little bit. I mean, just a little bit, man. Yep, LJ, the Seahawks can definitely come back as the best. They can come back as my prediction next season is 14-2. We're not going to play the toughest schedule in the NFL next year like we did this year. And this team is going to get better. It's one of the younger teams in the NFL, Yeah, the Packers were healthy and the Niners were healthy. I mean, it comes down to this at the end of the day. The game, football is about talent and having the best talent and having the best schemes, and having the best coaches, and having the best players. It's also about attrition. And it's a long season, and guys get the hell beat out of them. And if you lose too many players, it doesn't matter how much talent or if you've got a Hall of Fame quarterback, you can there can be a ceiling to how far you can get. And they hit their ceiling, I really feel like, with attrition being a big part of that reasoning. No, I don't think Marshawn Lynch was brought back just to make fans happy. In my eyes, I thought he was a better back than Homer in how he ran. I mean, maybe Homer is a better back then, but I didn't think Marshawn did with what he could do. Carroll said it himself after the Niner game. There wasn't a lot of holes we were creating for these guys. They had to make do with what they could make do, you know? Yeah, I think healthy guys, Jonathan, make a big difference in this game, a monstrous difference. And Disley is like guy I like going forward, dude. I do, but let's face it, he's been injured at the start of the season in back-to-back years with major lower leg injuries. Relying him as your number one tight end and saying we're good there, I don't think you can do that, especially with as much of a difference in how we saw this offense when you had Hollister in there instead of Disley. It seemed like we were a lot more efficient, a lot more effective when you had a real prime catching target out there. Hollister did fine. He did his best, you know what I mean? But like Hollister is limited. He absolutely is limited. CJ Prosise it's a sad deal, dude. The guy has legitimate talent, absolutely legitimate talent. You saw it that first year when that Eagle game with his 80-yard run that he busted off, the Patriot game where he was this Swiss Army knife that you could just use all over the football field and attack different places. And then he just could not ever get healthy again. The guy is made of glass. I mean, I never like to say that about football players because it takes a lot to get to the pro game, but he is absolutely made of glass. I'm good with him going, we need to get out of the injury prone players, guys that are getting beat up and that are unable to stay on the football field. I'm done with these guys. It's time to move on to guys that can get out there and availability is we need some more availability and not just the shooting for the hope thing. Yeah, I thought Prosise would be a good back, man. He had that burst coming out of college that you could see translate to the next level, and you thought, oh, that could really work. And especially with him starting out as a wide receiver at Notre Dame, you saw him being a guy that in this modern era where running backs being used out of the backfield, it got your imagination running wild. But I mean, I think he got every type of injury you could possibly get outside of, I think, ACL and Achilles. I think everything else he was afflicted by. I'm not as big on signing Carson to a deal myself. He's in his 3 years here at the Hawks. He's had season-ending injuries twice. He's got a fumble problem. I'm more in favor of you're a restricted free agent. If somebody wants to sign you a deal, we won't match it, and we'll get the draft pick compensation back. I like Carson a lot, but I feel like running backs are a fungible position. You can go out and get 5th, 6th, 7th round running backs and get some quality there. You can find guys out on the open market and pick them up for peanuts. There's always a lot of running backs out there. It's better to get the better offensive line that can block for running back, that can create holes for running back. That's the better thing to concentrate on. I'd love to see him bring back Marshawn. I doubt he'll come back as a backup type player, but I do like Marshawn a lot, man. Yeah, I thought he came back and gave us some juice. I don't know why injury prone players are injury prone. Some guys some of it I think is some guys can't play through pain. I think some guys need to be absolutely 100% to get on the football field. In the NFL, that's just a rarity. And it's hard for guys to learn how to play through injury and pain. It is. But I think it's a necessity in the NFL that you got to learn how to do that. Well, and Shane, that's the thing with Russell is Russell's not the greatest at throwing the flat routes out to the running backs. He'll do it from time to time, but it's not a consistent part of his game. Some of it is the height aspect. He oftentimes can't see over the defensive end crashing down that edge, and so it gets hard to make that throw. But it's just not a part of his game that he does as much. Ryan Dallas, the strength and conditioning coach for the Seattle Seahawks, goes by the nickname Ivan the Terrible. He got this nickname when he was the strength and conditioning coach with USC and University of Washington because all of those players fell to injury throughout the season. They lost a ton of their roster throughout the year. Does this sound familiar? So Carroll brought him in. And again, we come back to the same thing over and over that I've been harping on. What's my issue with Carroll? Nepotism, lack of a willingness to do new things, only wanting to stay with what he knows. Ivan the Terrible was his strength and conditioning coach at USC. So he brings him over to Seattle now. Why? Because he knows him. But what happens? We're one of the most injured teams. In fact, we had more players lost to injury this year than any team in the NFL. By far. By far. Get him the fuck out of here. Get somebody in here who can train these guys to get healthy. I mean, what do you need to see? What more data points do you need, Pete? He's had 3 separate jobs. Everybody's been injured, but yet you want to keep him on. What is he, a good guy? I don't get that. I never understand that, why you stick with stuff that doesn't work just because you know it. LJ Famous, no, I don't think that there would be an LOB, because I think that that's a once in a generation secondary that you created. I don't think you're going to see that talent and that kind of chemistry back together. I think it's easier to find the pass rushers. It's easier to bring pass rushers in and say, all of you go hunt, do it in whatever way you need it to be done. I think it's a much more difficult task getting the secondary guys back there that are that good. Yeah, penalties hurt. We're always a hugely penalized team with Pete Carroll. That's just a common thing. Oh, Clowney's going to be open to signing the biggest deal he wants to sign. He played on the franchise tag this year. He's going to want to get paid. And I think Seattle's going to be willing to pay him. But, $25 million versus $20 million is a big difference. And if somebody goes out there and breaks the bank for him, I don't know if Seattle will be willing to match that. That might be too high a cost for them at that point to look at doing that. They might think, hey, we can go out and make trades and get a guy at $12 million a year, get another guy at $10 million a year, and get nearly the same production with those two guys. I mean, there's an argument that could be made that you could go that route instead. But I think they're going to have the first swing at him. He can't sign, free agency doesn't open for a couple months. So you can sign him at some point here. You can give it a try. Yeah, I think LOB was lightning in a bottle too. Funky Monkey, I don't know what the alternatives would be at defensive coordinator, because I don't know of the D coordinators out on the market. Wade Phillips is the guy that just came out on there. He is a guy who's been absolutely solid, and I like him a lot. The problem with him, of course, is he's a 3-4 guy. Carroll's a 4-3 guy, so that probably doesn't make it a good fit. But I would probably really look for Carroll to go to the coaching ranks in college and grab, the equivalent of a Lincoln Riley in defensive coordinators. Find a guy like that on the college ranks and bring him in. A guy you don't know, a guy that you've heard by reputation, somebody that you're uncomfortable with, maybe even. Get outside of that comfort zone is what I'd like to see Carroll do with his next hire. Not bring on an also-ran like he did with this Norton hire. I hope Beast Mode is coming back. Yeah, Exotic, I had to kill it a couple times. My stream keeps getting cut by choppiness. I don't know why. I'll fix it out. I'll fix it on the next stream once we get live. It's probably a low latency I've got to set it to or something like that. Yeah, Pete literally even has his sons on the team, Carl. I know. It's that you go, dude, have some self-wherewithal here. I mean, this is again where people say, is he getting too old? I don't think he's getting too old from a motivational standpoint or being a leader of men. I think he's getting too old in the standpoint of he's not being innovative. That's where it really is for me. It's very crazy, Shane. And the abdominal injuries that these guys had, you had a bunch of guys with lower abdominal injuries. That again comes back to training. And when you're seeing the same kind of injury popping up over multiple players, that's where it's like, Houston, we got a problem. Welcome back, Landon. Riding on cloud 9 with your pack. We don't have to get rid of Price Ice. He's going to be a free agent. So, no, I don't want to re-sign him because he's going to, you're going to get him for veteran at that point. You got to sign him for $750,000 a year for a guy that's injury prone and has not given you the production at all. So, no, I don't think so. I agree, Shane. I think Pete Carroll is going to be the head coach here next year. I don't think there's any chance he's retiring. Who do you want back, Richard or Earl? If I had to pick between the two, I don't think you're getting either of them back. But Richard would be great. I think Richard eventually could transition to safety at some point in his career and be a darn good free or strong safety. He's turned into a hell of a tackler throughout his career. Yeah, Wade Phillips I don't think is a fit. It's just the first name that comes up to mind, and I'd have to really dive in deep to see what defensive coordinators are out there because there's no like lockdown names that you could go to that are certain guys, I think. I don't feel like there's anybody just sitting out there that's, the good guys get picked up fast with that type of thing, Yeah, I think college rank. Go outside the box. Find a guy that's been playing against these spread concepts and how to attack them, and has some innovative ideas for how to attack them. I agree, Jonathan. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'm open to a new scheme as well. Andrew, right now I am in the Spokane area, but I'm going to be moving back to the Seattle area soon. So I'm on east side of the state, but I am trying to get back over to the west side, hopefully in the spring. Pete got us a ring, man. No doubt there. You'll have my love and affection for life for just that reason alone. Yeah. LJ, I'd love to see Ethan Postic at center, man. Get him in, get him healthy, and let me see what he can do. We have not seen this guy. You drafted in the second round out of LSU at center. Let's try him out. So D Nugget, my football knowledge, I did not play any advanced football or anything like that, but I have been watching it intrinsically for years and years and gotten as deep into it as you can get into it, I think. It's something that makes sense to me, man. And I love it. I love it as a sport. It's by far my favorite sport. I love everything about it. I love the strategy up against talent, up against, it all just kind of comes together in a way I don't think you get in other sports, man. Yeah, the tough thing with Richard, man, is I don't think it was about play with him leaving. Even though he left injured, I don't think it was the reasoning there is a lot of the reason they got rid of Michael Bennett. It wasn't because the guy didn't have still a lot of tread on his tires and still a lot of good plays to be had. It was because that locker room had gotten cliquey. Guys were moving into their own little separate groups. It wasn't we're all together as one that you kind of see that you see this year. And I think that they were aware of that, and that a lot of his reason for moving was because they thought he was tuning Carroll out and tuning out the process a bit. And you hear that with that whole kumbaya talk that Sherman did, knocking Carroll. I mean, it wasn't awesome. And yeah, Sherman did want a lot of money as well. So, did you want to pay a guy that you thought? Blaze, Spokane's all right, but I'm a West Side boy to my core. So I'm just more comfortable on the West Side. I like Spokane, but I just like, I'm a Seattle kid through and through, man. But yeah, I don't have a good answer for you on football knowledge, man. It's just something that clicks with me, and I get as deep into it as you can probably get. Odds of us retaining Clowney, I'm going to put it at 80%. I think he loves it here, and I think he will end up taking a couple $1 million discount and not necessarily need to be paid at the very top of his market. That's me reading tea leaves, but I feel pretty good about it as well. East side. That's right. I have not coached kids. I'm eventually going to do some coaching. I am unfortunately kind of a workaholic, so I tend to do a lot. I'm in the IT industry, and so I don't get a lot of extra time, and I've been putting it into this channel now, the extra time I've gotten to kind of beef it up. I think Pete's got his motivation. I think Pete's missing right now, Ryu, is in his schematic approach and in understanding that he needs to tweak his system and tweak the way that they go about their business. And they've been unwilling up until this point to do that. Favorite football moment in life? I don't know about favorite football moment in life. I'd have to think about that one, man. Give me some time. Give me some time to think on that one. Yash, co-theory, I think we are going to re-sign Jadeveon, so look at that. Yeah, to say he's disappointing, LJ Collier, Shane, is an understatement of the year. To the fact that you had that guy as a healthy scratch for multiple games, and that I think he had one quarterback pressure the whole season. And this is not a guy that you can apply the same kind of logic you can apply with Rasheem Green. Rasheem Green comes out as a 20-year-old kid. You can see him slowly developing and getting better and better. This kid came out 24 years old out the box. He's going to be 25 next year. He doesn't have that same amount of time to go out and develop in the same way. So his bust status, him not getting around, and I hated that pick at the time, man. Just a horrible pick. What's up, David Ruiz? What's up, man? Yeah, Spokane is nice. It is nice. There ain't nothing wrong with it, but I don't like the weather either. I'm not a big snow guy, so. Seahawks played well. Yep, Seahawks played well, David. You just got to play it on the road. If you could have played this at home, it might have been a little different. How do we get O-line? So, Ryan, the one thing, here's the scenario I've thrown out, which I think is fairly plausible. You have Indianapolis Colts. They need a quarterback. They're not going to get a quarterback through draft because they're picking in the teens. They got to move up in the draft. So they need first-round picks to get the combination of first-round picks to move up in the draft because they have a complete team. One could make the argument all the Colts really need is a quarterback. So you go look at a guy like a Quentin Nelson, a great Pro Bowl caliber guard. First to third, here you go, Colts, give us Quentin Nelson. That's the kind of deal that I would like to, that's the kind of deal I'd like to see. And I think it's feasible, man. I don't necessarily think it's super feasible, Yash. I think Jaron Reed will stay, of course. Puna's not going anywhere. Rasheem's not going anywhere. But I think Quentin Jefferson's going to be gone. We don't know with Al Woods, and Jadeveon is obviously up in the air. He's a full free agent. You can't put the franchise tag on him. So, they're part their own group. The LOB defense, Russell Austin, they were part of their own group. And I think that it worked good at times, but it would cause tension, Ryu, that dynamic between the defense and offense. And I think it's not ideal for how you want a team constructed, where you've got that kind of contentiousness, especially when it comes down to who's getting credit, who's the reason why we're winning. It gets kind of dicey when you get into that phase of things, which is where that team went. Yep. And Clowney's going to say, don't take too much off of Clowney in a press conference after this game. He's going to say all the right things. He's a free agent. He's got his pick of the litter of where he goes. So, he's going to say that, but Seattle will have their first run at him. They're going to have their first chance. And again, is somebody going to be willing to break the bank, go $25 million a year, set the market pace for a guy like Clowney, who was injured throughout this year and did only have 3-4 sacks? I don't know. I don't know if I could see a team necessarily doing that. There's always a team with some cap room willing to do something stupid, but like and share. Please do like and share. Yes, sir. Big Chirk, I would love it if Marshawn Lynch came back. I would absolutely be in favor of it. I don't know if he'd be willing to come back as a backup running back, though, and on limited carries. So I think I would think that he probably wouldn't be in favor of doing that. It'd be great, though. I thought he looked fine. Some people think he really looks sluggish and slow, but I didn't think the problem was him. I thought he gave us some juice here. So, Blaze, could you imagine if Fitzpatrick went to the Patriots and won map and a winning Super Bowl? You'll have to expand on that, Blaze, a little bit. I'm not sure what you meant on that. The Arizona game was horrible, Funky Monkey. That was an awful, awful fucking loss. You had no reason to be losing that game. Kyler Murray went out after halftime. But, when you watch that game, at least to me, when I watched it, it looked like the Cardinals wanted it more. We didn't look like the hungrier team that day. And that was the disappointing part, is you controlled your own fate. You could have gotten the home field bye. You could have gotten the home field advantage. And you shit your pants on a day you couldn't shit your pants at home. That was a horrible loss, absolutely horrible. And it's a big reason why we are where we are right now. Huge reason. Shaquem gives us some juice on the line. His speed is awesome. You gotta protect him, but I definitely like him for 15 to 20 snaps a game. No, Russell will never leave. I think he's a Hawk for life. I don't think the Twins are going to get cut at this point. I think they're perfectly happy with what they're getting out of both of those two guys, and neither of them are costing you a huge amount of money. It's a tough loss for us, legendary DT. This was a tough one, man. We felt like we were getting back on you guys. So this one does hurt, man. Do you think Taysom Hill will ever be traded? No, I don't think Taysom Hill will be traded. I don't think they're going to go to him as a starter yet. But I certainly think that if Drew Brees doesn't feel like he's got a hot seat going right now, it's warm as hell underneath him. It's not guaranteed with the way that the stuff's going there. And the thing with Drew is that he did okay this year, but as he's getting older, those older quarterbacks, they wear down as the year goes on. So I don't know. Hey, Peng Jing, thank you so much, man. It's my pleasure making those series. I really enjoy doing those great Seahawk moment shows. So glad you like it, man. Legendary, I think we're close, bro. And we got 70 million in cap space and I think 11 draft picks. So we got the ammunition to go into this offseason and do what we need to do. Yash, I tend to think that we probably will sign one of the defensive end free agents that are out there on the market, be it a Dante Fowler or Yannick Ngankwe from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that even if you sign Jadeveon Clowney and got Jaron Reed on a franchise tag, that you still be looking at bringing in one of those guys. I don't know where else they would necessarily look to make moves in free agency. I think really they're going to try to trade for guys and take on salary by flipping draft picks for the salary that you take on. I.e., let's say a Von Miller type deal, because you have the cap space at that point. And again, you want to play the compensatory game. That's the key. You want to play that draft pick compensatory where you get 4 free agents signed off onto other teams and you get those 4 draft picks back as compensation in the next draft, like we will in this draft, like we did in the previous draft. I don't want to go after any corners, Big Chirk, in free agency because corners tend to struggle when they come into this team. They're asked to play a different technique. It's called the kick step technique, and you play into bail. So you play into zone coverage, and that's really hard on corners who have a tendency to be taught to be sticky in coverage and play their man tight. So I don't know, I don't know that they look that route. They would probably go higher draft for a corner in the draft and really pick them high like a first round pick than go that route. Maddox, my on the missed fumble call, are you talking about the Hollister fumble where the ball came out as he was going down, and then they determined that the possession was not regained by the Packers, or was there a different fumble you're talking about? Yeah, David Ruiz, the twin sack was awesome, man. What an amazing moment that was in the game. Number 3 is definitely going to be retired. He is in the Ring of Honor for sure. D-Nugget, no doubt. Thunder Smash, I'd like to see them, rather than play the free agency game, I'd like to see them make a trade with the first and 2 second-round picks you have. Use that as trade ammunition to go out and get a player who right now is ready to contribute at his highest level. Not a guy that you got to go draft and hope develops and comes along, or you got to wait a couple years. This whole last draft that we just had, how many guys were inactive and didn't play and weren't on the field? I don't want to reduplicate that with this draft. And the deeper that you get as a football team, the more players we get on this team, the bigger that the chances are that you're going to be cutting really high draft picks. And I fucking hate that. We lost Gary Jennings, a 4th round pick this year, because we had too many receivers. We had too many quality guys. So you had to cut him for nothing. You lost that 4th round pick for nothing off this last draft. And we've seen this in the past with Amara Darbos and Chris Harper's. I don't want to see it again. So use some of the draft capital to go get guys who might be carrying a little more salary and go that route. And then your own free agents that get lost, you get to then now recoup the compensatory game. That's playing it on the next level for me. And that's the way they have been doing it recently. Christian McCaffrey would be amazing, but there is no chance that the Panthers are going to be trading that guy. Absolutely no way. It was a good game, David. It was a tough one. Yeah, Kenyon Drake is a good running back. He was an interesting guy, Shane, when he was coming out of Alabama because he didn't have a lot of carries, but you could see he was super quick, super fast. He would give us a different running back that we don't necessarily have on the roster, maybe a little bit like Rashad Penny, but maybe a little bit more agile, not as quite as fast. But I don't think that you want to really spend money on running backs. That's the issue I would have with that, is that he's going to cost some money, and I don't want to pay that position. I want to go cheap there. I want to go cheap there, and I want to go cheap corner. I think those are 2 places that you can afford to go a little cheaper on with the way we set things up. That cat is absolutely real. And she's watching my other cat right now because she thinks my other cat's going to get attention, and she is a little bit of a jealous girl. So she's watching to make sure she doesn't get any attention. Yeah, I want to stick with Rashad Penny and Chris Carson as a 2-man back. They both do 2 different things. You can use them to attack a defense that might be vulnerable to what is their strengths. And I like the way they mix and match. It didn't work out for the injury standpoint, but when they were going in the couple times they were, It was nice. And there was a times where Carson wasn't able to go, but you were able to bring in Rashad Penny and have him go off, like in the Steeler game or in the Philadelphia Eagle game, the first one. So she's a good girl. Well, the problem for me who impressed me as a rookie, and DK was obviously impressive. The problem with it is we didn't play our rookies. Phil Haynes just saw the field for the first time in this game. Ugo, we're finally getting snaps in the last game and even that wasn't substantial. They were still sticking with their 4-3. I guess if I've got to be pinned down to a guy that I would go with, I would say that I think Cody Barton's future. I think both him and Ugo Amadi would be tied. I think both of those two guys are going to be solid players for us. Do I see them as Pro Bowlers? Not necessarily. But do I see them as solid? Absolutely. And if you've got stars in other positions, if you can get some stars on the defensive line, stars on the offensive line, we've got Lockett and DK in certain places where you're already upper level. I think that you're going to be good enough at that point with those guys. And the thing that didn't show up for Cody that will show up. Go back, watch his training camp. He made an interception where he jumped a route, an amazing interception. You have to go deep into the training camp vault to see the footage, but he was widely regarded on the team as the best coverage linebacker on the team. And that's saying something. KJ Wright's pretty good linebacker. Bobby Wagner's okay in coverage, but I think this guy, as we move forward, and especially the modern era, as teams are more pass happy, he's going to make some plays on for you in coverage. The more he gets comfortable, a little more seasoning, a little more, a few more games under his belt, I see that guy getting better and better. Not necessarily Pro Bowler, but getting better, being an upper level starter for you. I think we're going to be picking about 24th or so, D Nugget. I don't have the exact on that, but 24th in the first round will be my. Why did we keep Turner over Ferguson? Well, Jazz Ferguson did not get put back on an active NFL roster or a practice squad roster after he got released by Seattle. The questions on Jazz Ferguson when he was coming out in the draft was work ethic. Did the guy want to work for it? He has a lot of talent, but will he go for it? And it didn't appear that that was the case with Seattle. And Turner is the polar opposite of that, right? Super hard worker. He's considered by some as the best blocking wide receiver on the team. And that's why he's kept over a guy like Jazz. I like Jazz a lot too, Shane. The thing I think with Jazz is that it's what we didn't see during the week. He was not maybe showing out in practice, giving it all. He was maybe not showing up to meetings on time because he showed up in preseason. He had a good preseason, and you had him on the practice squad. You didn't need to worry about keeping him inactive or playing some roster game with him. He was already, where he essentially needed to be for him to keep him under club control, but they released him. So I tend to think that means that he probably had some work ethic issues. Yeah, you pair Von Miller and Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, there's guys, you're going to be tough to deal with at that point, and Von Miller, when they got the most out of Von Miller with Denver in his time there, where they got him at his best was when they had DeMarcus Ware over on the other side as another threat. That's when they were at their best. And I would argue that you get the most out of a prime pass rusher when you get somebody on the other side who's at least capable of being a threat, which we didn't have this year, really. We're going to lose a couple of guys in free agency. I think some of that's purposeful, though. I think they could sign Jermaine Ifedi right now to an extension if they wanted, and they could sign Quentin Jefferson to an extension if they wanted. But I think that they like putting that money in other places. So, I would. What's up, Jonathan? Good to have you back. Yeah, the team needs to learn to play rookies more. The modern era, you got to get over your whole rookies. And it's a contrast again. It's so weird to me. And this is where I get back to Pete Carroll getting into the safe mentality as he gets older. When he was at USC, what he would do is this. He brings in a freshman and he would have a role for the freshman player. He'd say, this is the role I'm allotting you. I'm not going to overfill your plate. You're going to be tasked to do a very specific thing, but this is what you're going to be asked. But he would give them an ability as a freshman to get up on the field and play. But now it seems like he's become one of those coaches who just, you play a rookie, you're going to lose. You're going to play, you can't play rookies. Because there's no reason to have Lano Hill or Tedrick Thompson in over Marquise Blair at any point during this year. But at every point during this year, they were in over him. Don't get it. Absolutely don't get it. Yeah, I think the Packers are going to get handled. Maybe not. Maybe they can, but the Niners are so healthy. They're playing at home. and they seem to be playing their best football of the year. And no, let's not say they also got Quan Alexander back, who really solidifies their linebacking core. He came back off that torn pec. I mean, they've got a lot of bullets in that gun for the Niners, and I don't know if the Packers got the same sort of health ammunition that they're dealing with. Yeah, liquid swords. I think both coordinators do need to go, man. I absolutely do. Yeah, Gary Jennings, I don't understand. And if he ends up lighting it up for the Miami Dolphins next year on their team, you just go back and you shake your head and you go, okay, you couldn't have packaged that 4th round pick at some place to get a better value so that you didn't have to do that. And you can fall into the same problem this year, right? Because you're getting the 4 compensatory picks back, because you got the 2 second rounders, you're going to end up with a lot of picks, and you're going to be back in that situation potentially of having to cut a really good player you don't want to cut because he's at a position group that you happen to be a little bit deeper at than you thought you were when you made the draft selection. You got yourself caught in that situation here, and it can happen again. Absolutely could happen again. Timing Bigfoot, my prediction is that we actually trade out of it at this point. I think we trade that 1st round pick. I think that would be what I would guess. I think you're trading it for a player. Ziggy Ansah has not been the biggest bust in free agent history for the Seahawks. There's a few different guys we signed over the years that I can point to if you want to go back deep into our history and look at that were signed who didn't do anything the second they were signed, even step on the football field. Ziggy at least did do that. But it was a bad move, and it was a move that you could see coming. The Lions and the Lion people were happy to tell you that this was a guy week in and week out. We did not know if he was going to be healthy enough to get out on the football field. It was always a roller coaster ride of emotions whether or not he was going to get there. And you didn't have a lot of production to go off with him of consistent production year in and out, year out, where this guy was pushing 10 sacks. But you signed him to damn near $10 million for this year. Granted, it was only a 1-year contract, but man, you could see that one kind of coming. You really could. And there were other pass rushers that were more certain out there on the market that they swung for the fences with Ziggy, hoping they could get a guy who could reduplicate that 17 a sack year that he had at one time. Yeah, I like Solari myself. I don't think Solari is the problem, and I like him over Tom Cable by quite a bit. No, I'm not as big on Chris Richard. I think with Fant, I believe you can put a restricted tag on him, Yash, like a 3rd, 2nd round pick, which will probably keep other teams from going out and signing him at that point. So I think you're able to do that with Fant. I'm okay with letting Ifedi go. Pro Football Focus has had Jermaine Ifedi throughout his time with the Seahawks as one of the worst right tackles in the league. You add this on top of the fact that the guy is a penalty machine, the highest penalized right tackle in the league for a couple of years. Why spend $13 million a year on that? What? Because he shows up every game? That's not the reason. That's not a reason to sign a guy to that kind of deal, in my opinion. So you keep Fant. He's your swing guard. You bring him back Dwayne Brown. Jamarco Jones will get kicked out to right tackle outside of them making a big move in that respect. Shervins, would we have to fire Shoddy or Norton, or is their contract up? Neither of their contracts are up. We would have to fire both of those guys to get them out the door. Yeah, we have no cap crisis. We have $70 million in cap space. We could probably create an additional $10 to $15 million in cap space by cutting certain guys like Dixon and Wright. So we're actually in good shape. Yes, in my opinion, Britt should also be cut. This is a guy that's played at basically right around league average for you at center, which for some of you might be like, oh, that's great. But again, you're not paying him at league average. You're paying him at $9 million. You're paying him top of the market for centers right now in the league. So he's not giving you upper level center play. Let Ethan Posick give you a chance. Put Ethan Posick out there as the starter center. Let me see what he can do. Yeah, I think Seattle keeps Clowney. I honestly do. And you've got a little bit of time before free agency to get a deal done with him. I have to feel like that they're already working on something if they haven't been in talks up until this point. If I'm Bruce Arians, I run from Jameis Winston at this point. I'm not a big Jameis Winston. I don't like Jameis Winston though. I just think I think he is what he is. I think he has talent, but I don't think he's got the decision-making that you need to have at quarterback in the modern era. You got to be way more protective of the ball, way more able to be productive and make those wild throws while being able to not be intercepted all the time like he is and just make these weird throws where it's like, where did that come from? Who's the clown that didn't catch the ball? That was Malik Turner missed the catch, Vlad, and that was a bad drop, no doubt. Shervins, I don't re-sign Chris Carson. There's 2 positions on this team that I go cheap. 2 positions: running back, cornerback. Running back, because you can always get great running backs in the later rounds, and they just every year, or even in the free agency, you can get guys, or even in trades, you can get guys for very little trade value. You can get a very good running back. Why pay them? And with cornerbacks, it's because of the scheme. The way our scheme plays, there's no reason to pay a cornerback in this scheme. Yeah, I think Carson, the thing with Carson is he's fine, but look, he's been injured 2 of the last 3 seasons. He's had his seasons cut short by injury, and he's a fumble machine. Why am I paying him money at that point? Well, the thing with Jimmy Graham, though, Shane, is that it wasn't a free agent. You got him in a trade. That's where you moved a first-round pick and Max Unger for him. Yeah, the problem with the Jimmy Graham trade was is that he was a move tight end. He was a guy that they put out a lot of times outside inline position that you'd normally have the tight end in. And what that led to then was now you're bringing him in line and you're trying to make him into a player he isn't. And Seattle would just absolutely refuse to move him out on the edge. And it was so rough to watch because it's like, you guys utilize him right. You're going to bring him in here, then use him the right fucking way. But, they didn't do that during their time and they never figured out, and frankly got injured a little bit, and it didn't work out. And Lacey was pretty bad too. Yep. Lacey was a bad one. Again, I'd go probably bigger. There's got to be a bigger free agent bust that we've put money to out there. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I know that we've signed somebody to a free agent contract that didn't really give us much. Seattle's roster. Blair Walsh wasn't a good one either. Yeah, that was a bad one. Yeah, I'm not down on Malik Turner. You're getting him at $300,000 a year right now on his rookie contract. He's maybe your best blocking wide receiver. You're not going to want him taking a ton of snaps. I don't want him as my 3rd wideout. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to upgrade the 3rd wideout position, but as our 4th or 5th wide receiver, I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. Hauschka was a good kicker for us. Hauschka did have limited range, though. That was the thing with him. You couldn't put him out there for 50-yarders. Everything had to be 45-yarder or under. And he struggled on extra point kicks as he was leaving, which was really weird. Yeah, Max Unger was a great center, and he played fantastic for the Saints. That trade didn't work out for us, and it goes to show if you're going to make a deal for somebody, make a deal for somebody that fits into your scheme if you're going to make a trade for a first-round pick, not for a guy that you've got to, jam the circle into the square peg, which is what they did with him. Big Chirk, I love Marquise Blair, man. I absolutely think Marquise Blair can be a full-time starter. When he was drafted, I was worried because the NFL is legislating hits out of the game, and that seemed to be his calling card throughout college, was laying hits. But he looked good in coverage to me, too. He looked solid at times when he got matched up on a tight end. So I like him moving forward. Don't know how it's going to work, though, because we got 3 solid safeties now. Defensive and offensive line, Shervins, those are the 2 places they need to harp on. If they concentrated just on those sides of the ball this offseason and all but ignored the other areas of the football team, I would be okay. I think Antonio Brown took one too many blows to the head. I really do. I think the guy's got some mental issues going on. I like him a lot. Seattle will definitely kick the tires on him. Don't think you're not going to hear some rumors of that guy this offseason because he's not going to cost a lot. He's paid his penance for a year out of the league and somebody's going to bring him in. But boy, it just seems like his head's twisted around, and I don't know if he's a good teammate. Big Chirk, I love Tennessee. They're a complete football team. But in the postseason, you got to have something great about you. And they run the ball great. They may be able to, that's where it's like, dude, they got a chance because that Chiefs team this year gave up a lot of yards in the running game. So, if they just hammer the ball, they may be just a run all day on that Chiefs team and not stop them. So Derrick Henry is a free agent, but you got to think Shervins, they're probably going to franchise tag him. It only cost you a 1-year, $13 million deal to do a franchise on a running back because that market is so depressed for them. So it's all day long if you're a team. Don't pay him the long-term deal. Just put him on the franchise. I love big-bodied wide receivers for Russell Wilson all day, Big Shirk. We've seen with Will Disley. We've seen it this year with DK. Big-bodied wide receiver with Josh Gordon. Big-body wide receivers work really well with Russell. I'd like to see us stay on that trek. I really would. I think because he throws such a great deep ball and he's such a good trust ball thrower, and that he puts the ball and gives his guy a chance. And those big guys love that when you give them the ball in the right placement and give them a chance against those tiny corners. So get more big receivers. I'm perfectly fine with that. We potentially could need a kicker, but I have a feeling they're going to stand pat with the kicker we have. You sign him to a contract this offseason, you'd have to eat some dead money to release him. And, kicking is not the problem. You go for it more on fourth down. To me, that's really where you need to look at doing. I'd be okay with going with the wide receiver in the draft. I'd like to look maybe later on though, not early on, because you're looking at drafting a third wide receiver. Like you're not going to be a guy on a team that runs the ball a lot. He's not going to be used a lot. Don't put a high round pick on that. Hard to find Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellors, man. Those type of players don't come along very often with those type of skill sets. But again, I think our safety position isn't the problem on this team. I think we've got good safeties. I think, the defensive lines needs the improvement. We could get a wide receiver. It's a pretty deep wide receiver crew this year. You're absolutely right about that. Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. I like Josh Gordon, D-Nugget. I liked a lot of his play, and I think you're going to be able to get him at a cheap price, right? He'll be on suspension for most of the year probably, but what if you could get him back with 8 games left in the season? You get that guy back off his suspension at that point. That would be a huge boon. And again, not a huge price that's going to cost. $2 million, you could get him back probably. On top of which, you don't have to pay him for the time that he's on suspension. So you save that in the salary cap for what he is on. I don't know. I like Josh. I did. I liked how he played. A good fit with Russell too. Struggling with kicking. I don't know. Kicking has seemed to go backwards in the NFL over the last few years. They did have for a long time. The kickers used to take the balls pregame and they throw them into dryers and beat them up, which made the balls easier to kick those long field goals later on in the game. Now they make them use the fresh balls that are all right out the box. And I've heard from kickers that they moan about that and say it's the reason why kicking is harder now. I don't know if that's the case, but yeah, Russell could use more weapons. I think he could use having a tight end like Disley playing all year at that position would have been a big difference, I think. Because I think you saw how much he targeted Hollister. Just having a tight end that could make catches, especially when the coverage was tight and you got hanging on him like Will Disley was able to do, that would be awesome. Odell will be able to be had, Ryu. Somebody's going to trade from this offseason, and it's not going to cost a first-round pick in my estimation. So I don't think we'll make the move, but he is going to be traded. Yeah, I keep Disley. I'm still high on Disley, but I'd like to get another tight end as well. I don't want to put all my hopes on that train. Yeah, Giovanni, O.J. Howard would be a guy I would look at trying to pick up from Tampa Bay Buccaneers as another tight end, as a hedge with Will Disley. Imagine running 2 tight end sets out there with Will Disley and O.J. Howard on each side, and what you could do against a defense and force them into. Are they going to go corner now, or are they going to try to cover them with a safety or a linebacker? It could get a little interesting in that respect. Hollister was a nice surprise, though. He played really well for us. I do think he is a little bit limited as a tight end, though. I do. I don't know I think Johnny Manziel is probably done with the NFL, Blaze. I don't think he's getting signed by anybody. Yeah, Shervins, I think you could let Carson walk too, and that's part of playing that draft pick compensatory game. If we let Carson go in, which I think with Carson you can technically do a restricted free agent on him because he's only after his 3rd year on the rookie deal, which means you could put a 2nd or 3rd round restricted tag on him and then get a 2nd or 3rd round pick back immediately for him if he does sign. But I'm perfectly fine letting those guys go and play the whole compensatory pick return game. Absolutely, because I think for your reasons that you stated, you can get great running backs later on in the draft. We've seen every year a bunch of running backs always come up and blow up in that 5th, 6th, 7th round. And it's like, you don't have to be a first rounder. It's just not necessary. Yeah, Gordon was money on those slants. 3rd down slants, he was, great. Yeah, the guys can't hit like they could anymore. You could find a rangy player like ET. That's absolute. But Shane, we're going to find that out with Marquise Blair, because Marquise Blair is like Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas combined a little bit. A little bit. Not exactly like that player, but he's a little bit like that. And we'll see if he can be effective in this modern gauge as we go into next year as that kind of player. I don't have a good answer, because I thought when he drafted, I was like, I don't know. I don't think you can. The NFL is just, they're too touchy with those defensive player hits and the head-to-head hits and all that stuff. I hope, John Reynolds, next year's Super Bowl sounds mighty fine to me. Give me a second here. Yeah, dominant defense will go a long way. Rejuvenating that defensive line would do that, I think. Yeah, Shane, he's got good speed. I like Hollister a lot. He's not as much of a hands catcher. He's kind of got to be wide open and not have a guy hanging on him a little bit, which is, again, what I'd like a little more of the tight end we get is a guy who has ability to have a guy hanging off him, have close coverage, but still go out and make a hands catch. Hollister is a little bit of a body guy. But look, we needed him to be what he was this year, and he was great. Tough as hell. I know he got beat up a few times and stayed in the game. And he was, without him, we would have been we would have been in dire straits at the tight end position, no doubt. Yeah, D-Nugget, I'll try to expand a little bit more with the live sessions here, because this has been really successful, a lot more than I thought so. So I'll be doing a lot more of these guys. If you're not subbed to the channel, please sub the channel. Keep an eye on my postings, and I'll try to do a little bit more of this on the usual. I love talking football, man. Like I told you guys, I could do this all day, all day long. You know what I mean? Austin Eckler is going to stay with the Chargers. He's not going anywhere. I don't think he's a free agent. I would probably look for the Chargers to let Melvin Gordon walk in free agency. That would be my what I would think that they probably do. Again, it's like these great running backs keep wanting the league to learn and the teams to learn that they miss them when they're out, that they're this difference maker. Were the Chargers a wholly different team when Melvin Gordon was out versus when he was in? Not to me. So, but it's the hard pill these running backs are having to swallow now, right? It's a struggle for them to wrap their head around it. And I get it. You're beaten up. You're asked to be used. You're getting hit all the time, but you're not getting paid. But it is just the way it is, man. It's the way the market is. Yeah, Shervin's letting Russell get the hell beat out of him over the last couple of years like they have in order to put money in order to put resources into other places has been really ridiculous and dumb. It really has. And relying on him to scramble his way out of trouble all the time is really asking too much of Russell, and it's not allowing him to be the best quarterback that he can be. We're not seeing the best version out of him, which is amazing with how he's played with what he's had up against him, but we're not seeing the best version. You will not see the best version of Russell Wilson until you have a team that can pass protect consistently throughout a year. Then you'll see the best version of Russell Wilson. Then you will see a guy putting up stats that no one has ever seen. But we don't get anything close to that because our pass protection is always 30th or 31st or 32nd every single year for the last 3 years. It's been a constant repeating tone. Now, some of it is Russell. Some of it is him, because it is shown that scrambling quarterbacks create their own pressure sometimes. They hold on to the ball a little longer. They're going to try to just delay, try to keep the play alive. So they will get sacked on them more often, and we see that with Russell where he will. But with that said, that's not what's happening here in the overall sense. We're not pass protecting well. I do live in Washington, Charles. I'm over in Spokane right now. I'm going to be moving back over to the west side somewhat soon. I'm hoping spring. We need Henry. Which Henry are you thinking, John Reynolds? Hunter Henry? Now, Giovanni, I disagree slightly with that. I think Frank Clark, and you have to keep in mind not just keeping Frank Clark, but it's the value you got from Frank Clark as well. You got the first and second round value back from Frank Clark on top of that cap space that you got to use in other places because of that. You wouldn't have DK Metcalf if you didn't make that Frank Clark trade today. Keep that in mind. At the end of the day, and this is my opinion, I think Jadeveon Clowney is a better player than Frank Clark. Just my opinion. I think he is a far better run defender. And I think as far as pass rushers go, I think Frank Clark is a little up here and Clowney's a little down here. But I think they're very close in that respect. So I'm okay with that trade and how they did that. I think that was a good deal as far as they go. And Frank Clark just isn't consistent enough in his pass rush. If it's the one thing he does good, he doesn't do it consistently enough throughout the game. He's too boom or bust. He'll have 1 or 2 good games where he gets a couple sacks and then disappears for 3 or 4 games. Yeah, Johnny Manziel is probably done there. Pete is positive Pete, Big Chirk, and he sees this team as the youngest in the league. He sees Russell, and he's not speaking out of his ass. This is a team that could certainly duplicate what this team did in 2012 and get back up on that horse. But if he's saying it like we've got a minimal amount of work to do to get back there, we're really close. We just got to do this. No, you guys need to make some aggressive damn moves this offseason. You need to really go for it. I mean, really go for it, in my opinion. You can't just sort of just tap dance your way around like you have the last couple of years. They've had to tap dance because they've had to clear that dead money off the books from the LOB era, and I get it. You're not in that place now this offseason. Don't look towards like preserving tomorrow. Take advantage of today. Oh, Chris Henry. Sorry, John Reynolds, Chris Henry. So the problem I have with that is that you're going to have to sign him at that point, John. How has it worked out for teams that have signed running backs to big money over the last few years? How have those running backs done after they've signed their contract? Have they been as productive or have they been a lot less productive? Have they been more injured or less injured? And that's the thing I go to is if you sign him, is he going to be in that same mode? Is he going to have that same hunger? And I don't know. You know, I saw what happened when we signed Sean Alexander after an MVP season, and that didn't work out too well. I'd love Marshawn to come back. I would absolutely love for him to come back. And you're right, Giovanni. The Seahawks need better offensive linemen. We've been saying it seems like every offseason that's the same thing we get to say over and over and over and over again. Gosh, we need better offensive linemen. Gosh, we need better offensive linemen. It's like, when are you guys going to do it? When are you guys going to really do it? You know, I thought what was really interesting about this first round is you had the 16 pass rushing defensive linemen taken in the first round this last draft. And then I think we took the 17th in LJ Collier, or he was the 16th. But you only had 2 offensive linemen taken in that same first round. You could have gotten the 3rd best offensive lineman in this draft or the 17th best pass rusher. Which would you guys rather have at this point right now? That's where it's, again, like they get their head up their ass sometimes on it, and I don't understand it. You know, that's where I don't understand. Yeah, Frank Clark, you were going to have to sign him to the $23 million deal, Shane. You weren't going to want to put him on the franchise tag. And they didn't want to pay Frank because he wasn't good he's not a good run stopper. He's not. He's below average as a defensive end edge defender in the run game. He's very good as a pass rusher, but you're $23.5 million a year. You want a complete football player. Leno looks slow to me too, man. Yep. It looks like that, you know. I agree with you 100% there. The guy, and he's not instinctive as well. He's slow and uninstinctive, which makes you look even slower on the football field. It makes me not understand sometimes, you know, like, come on. Yeah, offensive line, I'm with you, man. No injury prone guys. I want a young guy moving into his prime. And there's no reason for Leno to be on that football field. I guess Blair was injured in this game, but again, Leno and Tedrick Thompson, neither of those 2 guys, 2 third-round picks, ever showed you anything on a football field of note. Think about it. 3 years, like nothing, just nothing. What play did they give you? I would pay Clowney exactly the contract I was unwilling to play Frank Clark last year. And my reasons for that is I think he's a better player than Frank Clark overall. On top of the fact that the $23.5 million this year is not the same as $23.5 million last year, the cap's going to go up by 10%. So it's actually like you're paying him at about $21.5 million of last year, Frank Clark deal. So I would go that route. Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott fell back after he signed his contract. You could see that coming. Same thing, you know, the guy with the Jets that they signed that deal to, Le'Veon Bell, how'd he do this year? Not too well. You see it time and time again with these running backs. They get out of that first contract and they've been used and abused on that first contract so bad. There's just, you're getting broken goods at that point. Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of yards to be found on the ground, Ryu. Yeah, I look a lot like Kurt Warner's long lost cousin. I'll take that, man. I'll take that. I've been called worse. I really did like the Mike Iupati signing. The thing to consider about this year is Seattle looked at this year, and they won't admit this, but they didn't look at this year, I think, as they thought they were going to be a division contending team this season. I think they looked at it like, look, we're still in this transitional period. We're still trying to re-injuvenate the team from the Legion of Boom era. We're clearing this dead money off the cap still. It's this next offseason where we actually are going to have some money to spend and some flexibility with draft picks to make some moves. I think Snyder and Carroll really did look ahead to that, and that's why they didn't necessarily go for broke this last offseason with making a ton of super aggressive moves. They just kind of sat pat, held where they were, let their free agents get signed, and then just called it a day. I think that they're going to be a lot more aggressive in this offseason, and they're really going to go for it. The Madden curse hit Sean. Yep. It's a real thing, man. The curse is a real thing. But as well, too, it's the point still stands. You get a guy that's got 4 years of all 300 touches a season in the NFL. It doesn't matter if you're superhuman or not anymore. It seems like those guys get worn down at that point. It's really hard to be your Frank Gore type guys that are going to play for 15 to 20 years in this league as a running back. It's just not happening with normal players anymore. Well, all right. So, yeah, Robert Salehi did a good job with the 49ers. The thing the 49ers did, though, is they changed their scheme this offseason. We can talk all day about the bringing in Bosa and bringing in D Ford. The one other thing they did is they went to a wide 9. We were a 4-3 base that plays a lot of 3-4 concepts. So we ask our defensive linemen to have gap control. They're not shooting the gaps. They're controlling their gap. They're controlling their space. Wide 9 is a little more of an attacking 4-3 defense. I'd love to see Seattle make that transition. Do I think they'll do it? No, because Carroll likes his 4-3 under. But damn, it would be a it would be solid. It was a smart move by the Niners to go to it. It really lets your pass rushers eat, because the wide 9 is just like what the name says. It widens out those defensive linemen and really lets them have some space to operate and move in the pass rush. You get a little bit opened up on the inside in the running game, and that's why Carroll wouldn't be willing to do that transition, is because it does open up those inside running lanes. But Clowney would be amazing in the wide 9. He'd be absolutely, because you're giving him that much more space to get up to speed, and that much more, he gets that extra yard before the tackle gets his hands on him. I think it would be awesome. I'd love to see them make that transition myself. Yep, Gurley, David Johnson. It's a long list, Shane. It's a long list of running backs that got paid and then went downhill. Tedrick did do that, but I believe it was on a tip pass. And that's the only way Tedrick Thompson's intercepting a ball, it seems like, is if the offensive player drops the ball and then it lands in his hands, which I think we can find that with other players too. I don't think that's just a Tedrick skill at that point. Will the Rams get back on track for the playoffs next year? Yeah, I really do think that they will, because I think that I don't know if they'll get to the playoffs, but I think that they're going to be just as competitive a team as they were this year. I really do. They're still a very deep team. They're not super young, but they've got so many targets out on the outside they can hit you with. Their defense has got just enough guys. They may be right around where they were this year, an 8-8 type team, but they're still going to be stingy and tough to play. I mean, they're not going to be an easy victory for us. There's not going to be any paper tigers for us to go through next year. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Clowney on a wide 9. I'd love to see Clowney out there. He'd be a great fit in that type of scheme. The Rams' problems are going to probably come down to offensive line if there's going to be a problem that develops for them. They have got Andrew Whitworth, who's turning 39 years old. I think they've got a little bit more age on that offensive line. And Goff is not the most, when we talk about statue quarterbacks and not mobile guys, Goff's right in that range of being considered kind of a statuey kind of guy. And so, I do wonder on that with them, where they could have some problems with that if their pass right. They've been able to have a really nice offensive line throughout Goff's tenure there. that goes down or goes downhill, that could be problematic for them. Yeah, Blair was inactive. I don't know what injury he sustained, but that was disappointing to see. Really disappointing to see. Yeah, the Rams got an issue, though. They put up a lot of draft capital for Ramsey, but they didn't have him signed to a contract. Their cap situation's getting a little tight, and Ramsey's going to want to break the bank. That was a dicey move on their part to do that move, in my opinion. Giovanni, they've got to get another pass rusher opposite Clowney. He got double and triple teamed too often, which neutralized him